Okay, so hi everyone. It's lovely to be here. Iggy and Theo, it's great to be back. Thank you for the opportunity, as always. Um, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Nicola, obviously, and I'm a UX designer turned researcher. I have been doing UX and UI design for about 15 years. I've worked in edtech and e-commerce, fintech, pretty much done the grand tour of all the industries over the last decade and a half. I also have a master's degree in human computer interaction, and I've just finished a BA in anthropology and archaeology. I've also had quite a major midlife and kind of mid-career crisis over the last 18 months. I think that the corporate and agency grind finally got to me, and I realized I'm just too old and too tired to have a boss anymore. And I'm sick of doing like busy work and bullshit jobs that are not actually making the world a better place. So, as Iggy mentioned, I'm now a co founder and experience lead at the Empathy Lab. Um, we started out as a collective of like minded design friends and accessibility advocates back in like 2017, I think. Some of you might know and remember my partners in crime, Steve Bonnet and Marley Ritter. Um, and yeah, today we're a small consultancy. We're a real registered business, and we specialize in social sciences research and design and advisory. So our clients are everyone from small community and non-profit organizations to big corporations that have social mandates they need to meet. And basically, we can help you understand messy human problems and create positive impact in this completely crazy world that we live in. Okay, so that's the self promotion bit. Thanks, Icky. And so moving on to the talk, much like a Shakespearean tragedy, it's going to unfold in 5 acts. Going to start out a bit ranty, but I promise you we are going to end on a positive and optimistic note. So, if you take one thing and only one thing away from this talk, let it be this. In 2025, empathy has become a radical act. Empathy has become a radical act. And I'm very glad that we're already talking about empathy, from basically from the get go this morning. So I'd like to start with a little group therapy session, a little sanity check. You're welcome to pop comments and emojis in the chat. So hands up if you are tired at the end of this long, long year. I'm certainly exhausted. And hands up if you are sad, but disillusioned, but depressed. And hands up if you're angry. There's a lot to be angry about, I think. I'm angry. I'm very, very angry at the state of the world currently. Yeah, seasonally exhausted is an understatement. I'm absolutely knackered, and honestly, I'm quite depressed. This talk is going to get sweary. I'm not really apologizing for that. Just bear with. Let's just go on an adventure. So this orange fascist and all the lies and violence and bullshit that he peddles makes me really angry. It's one of the things. Genocide makes me really angry, as you may have discerned. And just utterly full of despair. I'm using Gaza as an example here, but this is just one of several horrible ongoing conflicts. The Ukraine and Sudan are obviously two other notable examples. Living on a burning planet makes me angry because apparently fossil fuel profits are more important than human lives. And the fact that we have LLMs grooming people to commit suicide and Roombas spying on people in their own homes, tech giants lying to and tricking people into paid up subscriptions, and idiotic trillionaires running wild inside the White House just makes me absolutely furious. And again, very, very depressed. I'd like to share with you the single worst video I've watched this year, if not in my whole life, that I think pretty much sums up the state of big tech right now. The whole thing is about 1 minute 45, but I'm going to cut it short because it gets very repetitive very fast. and I might have an aneurysm if I have to watch the whole thing again. So let's see if this is going to play.
Thank you for incredible leadership, including getting this group together.
Thank you, Bill. That was very nice.
Thank you so much for getting us all together, and thank you for being such a pro-business, pro-innovation president. It's a very refreshing change. We're very excited to see what you're doing to make all of our companies and our entire country so successful.
It's incredible to be among everyone here, particularly you and the First Lady. I've always enjoyed having dinner and interacting. I want to thank you for setting the tone such that we could make a major investment in the United States and have some key manufacturing, advanced manufacturing here. I think that says a lot about your focus and your leadership and your focus on innovation.
Well, thanks for hosting us. I mean, this is quite a group to get together. And, I think, all of the companies here are building, just making huge investments in the country in order to build out data centers and infrastructure to power the next wave of innovation. So it's, we don't often get together as the CEOs of the different companies, but it's good to see everyone.
This is a most incredible time. AI is going to change everything. You hear all of us saying that, but the fact that you are...
Okay, and so on and so forth. In my opinion, this is the only appropriate response, this GIF, to watching Bill Gates, Sam Altman, Tim Cook, Zuckerberg, all the rest, basically participating in a giant sycophantic circle jerk with Donald Trump. Why? Because they need him on side so that they can keep earning more money for themselves and more money for their shareholders. So to paraphrase Mike Monteiro from his book, Ruined by Design, which you should read if you haven't, we are so fucked. In fact, we are so fucked, it may already be too late for this talk. To understand how we got to this point of fuckedness, and therefore what we can do about it, which we will get to, I promise, I think it's important to reflect briefly on where this all began. Speaking of legacy software. So the internet was born, as it were, in 1983. And the World Wide Web was invented by Sir Tim Berners-Lee in 1989. And Tim's mantra was, "This is for everyone." His original vision was one of a universal, open, and free web. And we had exactly this for a good innings from the late 1990s onwards. And it was glorious. The web was populated by, with awesome content written by real human beings all over the world. South Africa was suddenly connected to the rest of the world, which was really quite something on the back of our apartheid isolation. And as a teenager, I'm giving away my age here, I spent happy evenings hogging the house phone, the house landline, chatting online with friends, downloading music from the Napster high seas, and carefully crafting my MySpace page, where everyone famously was friends with Tom. Tom, incidentally, completely ditched tech after he sold MySpace to become a full-time photographer who now travels the world, living his best life. So, and the interfaces back then weren't necessarily beautiful, but they really worked. Form followed functionality, and the UX was good. The words user experience didn't really exist yet. What we did was called human-computer interaction design, amongst other things, which is arguably a much better name, I think. UX only really started to become a thing, at least here in South Africa, in the early 2010s. So at the first UX SA conference in 2014, Phil Barrett gave a talk called UX in SA Any Day Now. And the greatest debate at that conference was over the use of the hamburger menu icon. Was it okay to hide mobile menus or not? And we couldn't decide. So it was a much simpler time, needless to say. I started wearing my UX design hat in 2011 at an edtech startup called Siyavula Education. And the vast majority of my job in those early years just involved speaking to kids and teachers about how they wanted to learn online. Pretty much all of my analysis and design happened on whiteboards and walls, like you see in this. This is a real photo of some of that work. And the split between research and design was probably 70-30. And we had really deep real world context about where, when, and how learners and teachers needed to use our stuff. After 2014, pattern libraries like material design and Apple's human interface design slowly but surely became ubiquitous. And so did WYSIWYG website builders like WordPress, not WordSpread, Weebly, and Squarespace. And then tools like Balsamiq and Sketch, and then later Figma in 2016, meant that we could start building out UX and UI libraries and really applying our designs and brands consistently across multiple channels and across design teams. At the same time, big corporate realized that UX and UI design was great for engagement and retention, which meant it was great for profit. And so South African designers, myself included, quickly got hoovered up by management consultancies, the media, commerce, banking giants, who could obviously pay, way better salaries than any startup. I would guess in 2014, the number of self-professed UX designers in South Africa was probably less than 100. And 5 years later, in 2019, I think any one bank had a design team or a design department that was like 1.5 times that size. So design things expanded rapidly between like 2014, 2019, but we were still doing research and testing with real human beings. So we had the best of both worlds. We had digital tools that helped us be efficient and consistent. And then we had time and budgets for proper in-person user research and usability testing. So, and this sounds amazing, right? I mean, it was amazing. You might think that this means that now, 6 years later in 2025, great design is everywhere. But it's actually not really at all. Because at the end of the day, capitalist big corporates want one thing and one thing only, and that's more money. And this is where it all starts to go horribly, horribly wrong. So I think there are 3 major contributing factors that got us from UX and UI design being everywhere 5 years ago to being pretty much nowhere in some spheres today. The first is enshittification. Then we have the rise of bots and the resulting death of the internet. And then the dawn of the post-truth era that we now find ourselves in. Enshittification is a term coined by Cory Doctorow just a couple of years ago in 2022. And it basically refers to the pattern whereby like online products and services inevitably get worse over time. What Doctorow says is first, platforms are good to their users. Then they abuse their users to make things better for their business customers. And finally, they abuse those business customers to claw back all the value for themselves. And so enshittification is coming for absolutely everything. Duolingo is a great example of this. When it first launched, I can't remember when that was, but it was a while ago. I mean, their app UX, the UX and UI was incredible. Everything was geared towards easily learning a new language, bite-sized lessons, and there was subtle, pretty delightful gamification all along the way. Then Duolingo became really popular, and they introduced and kind of changed their subscription model. And slowly but surely, the UX became more and more focused on interrupting users so often that they would pay for a subscription out of sheer desperation to just make those interruptions go away. Today, the free version of Duolingo is basically unusable. You have to fork out for their like premium family package thing, Super Duolingo, or you just drown in a tidal wave of banner ads and pop-up owls and distractions, and and it's just appalling, especially when you're trying to learn. And enshittification is impossible to separate from dark UX, right? So, for example, News24, when I log into News24 as a paid subscriber, I'm there to read the news. But Chris Becker wants one thing and one thing only, and that's as many eyes on as many ads as possible, because ads equal money. It's gotten to a point now where without an ad blocker, the News24 homepage is basically illegible. This is a static screenshot, but some of these ads are like moving, flashing things. This is hideous UX, and it's appalling accessibility. And so my experience, even as a paid subscriber, just clearly means nothing anymore. To be clear, I'm not by any means criticizing 24's design team or any of their employees here. I have absolutely no doubt. In fact, I know for a fact that they're doing their level best in a really tough business environment with a bunch of execs who are just throwing shitty business decisions over the wall. Countless other examples. So when last did Uber or Uber Eats' trashy UX piss you off? I mean, this is every time I use that app. There is another screen, there is another promotion, there's some other shit that I have to try and figure out and, you know, navigate my way past to order a ride. What about being logged out of your Oral-B toothbrush? That seems okay. Or having your fridge suddenly displaying Apple TV ads in your kitchen. What about mandatory cookie banners? Not necessarily a bad thing in themselves, but they've become so overwhelming that they now basically just dominate any mobile browsing experience today. You know, and then you get those special websites where you accept or reject cookies, and then there's a full screen pop-up, and then there's a this, and then you scroll and there's a subscribe. I mean, this is rubbish design. It's rubbish design. It's horrible UX, and this crap benefits big corporations and nobody else. Another terrifying example, I think, is Instagram Maps, which now lets any of your followers see exactly where on a map you have been posting from. You have to opt deliberately out of this feature in the app. And so if you haven't done so, I suggest you do that right now. This feature, it benefits Meta and Mark Zuckerberg in material ways. It gives them more location data, which means more targeted advertising, and more user engagement, which means, of course, more money. Never mind the very real physical dangers involved in being geographically trackable in real time. To be clear, this is from a company that is worth $1.6 trillion, run by a man who has $220 billion in the bank. But fuck your physical safety because he wants more cash. And then there's the devil itself, as if it wasn't Meta, which is LinkedIn, who just straight up spam you with emails and lie to you in those emails about mystery requests for work to force you, firstly, to log into the platform and engage with their crap, and then also subscribe to their very, very expensive premium page product shenanigans. So you should ask yourself, when last did you read something on LinkedIn that was written by a human being without the help of an LLM like ChatGPT? For a good laugh, I can highly recommend following the subreddit LinkedIn Lunatics. It's quite something to behold. That brings me to the second thing that I think's led to our demise, right? Which is the rise of bots and the dead internet theory. So the dead internet theory says that the vast majority of internet traffic is now bots and AI-generated content, and bots just interacting with other bots and bots managing other bots. This theory first surfaced actually in 2010, and it made it into the mainstream media in 2021, ironically just before ChatGPT's commercial launch, when everything kind of started getting worse. And 4 years later, the theory has been proven correct. So research has demonstrated again and again that bots are heavily involved in social media manipulation. We know this from, the US election campaigns, which is just one pretty terrifying example. Imperva's 2024 threat research report estimated that 50% of internet traffic now comes from non-human sources. And so-called bad bots, which exploit vulnerabilities to do all kinds of dodgy things, make up nearly a third of all traffic. So this means that half of the stuff happening on the internet is not real. So the internet's no longer populated with awesome content written by real human beings. Caitlin Tiffany says that AI has successfully drowned out the majority of online human activity, reshaping the internet into a more controlled algorithmic form that exists only to sell products and ideas. So in other words, we have managed to inshitify the entire World Wide Web, and in the span of 4 years. And it doesn't matter whether we're talking about digital or physical bots. The bots are not our friends. They are products first. They are the cameras and microphones and text input boxes of big corporations. And they're being rolled out without any sort of input from the people who are forced to use them. So I think we should be concerned about this, very, very concerned. And, relating to all of this, the third thing that I think has gotten us to this point is the rise of, as I said, the AI-generated post-truth era, where we can literally no longer tell what is real and what is fake. These AI-generated bunnies on a trampoline is a great example. And in case you missed it, this GIF just about broke the internet a few months ago. And this is not real. Watch it a couple of times. Like, I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know how to tell. And I'd like to think I'm fairly good at spotting, fake AI stuff, but apparently not. Importantly, ChatGPT or any LLM, it doesn't know what facts are. It only knows what facts look like. Doesn't know what facts are, it only knows what they look like. And yet, we feed ChatGPT alone 2.5 billion prompts every day. And for what? As Justine Bateman says, big tech is trying to convince us that we can't do things we have been doing easily for years, like writing emails or putting together presentations. She goes on to say that one of the ways AI is going to destroy humans is by emotionally hollowing us out. So if you need a made-up bedtime story about puppies for your kids, LLMs can do that for you. If you need to generate a virtual avatar of a dead parent, so you literally just never have to grieve, AI has got you. Need mental health advice? We've spoken about this already today. Because you're clinically depressed and alone, we know how that one ends. Sorry, I skipped a slide. She says, we'll get to the point that you will essentially become just a skin bag of organs and bones, nothing else. You won't know anything, and you will be told repeatedly that you can't do it, which is the opposite of what life has to offer. And we're seeing this hollowing out happen everywhere, right? OpenAI itself has admitted that ChatGPT causes psychiatric harm. We have people marrying AI avatars and all kinds of other weird shit going on, right? And this is not normal. It's not good for us, and yet we just keep building these things, building and building and building without stopping or at least slowing down to consider the ethics and the long-term ramifications for society. Because once again, products equal profit. Possibly the only sensible thing I've seen on LinkedIn this year is this post by Alex Freberg. Maybe it was written by him, who knows. But he basically says that when OpenAI is publicly listed, things will fall apart fast because shareholders and investors won't want to get sued left, right, and center for for a product that's dishing out dodgy, if not just plain wrong and really dangerous advice. So everything is really awful, I think. And I also think we've lost our way. I think as designers, we are rapidly just becoming prompt engineers, Figma monkeys, vibe coding, vibe designing, whatever that means. And, we're just designing the same stuff over and over again with these giant pattern libraries without ever having to leave the office and speak to real human beings. But I promised you this talk wouldn't just be doom and gloom. So what can we do about all of this, and how do we stay sane? I think the first thing is to get angry. Allow yourself to feel all the feelings you might have about the state of the world, about that shitty new feature your boss is trying to push through, or about the exorbitant Christmas bonus your CEO is about to receive. This shit is not normal. It's not okay, and you're allowed to feel pissed off about it, and you are allowed to say as much. And while you're getting angry, also allow yourself to feel everything else. So maybe you're burnt out, maybe you're disillusioned, maybe you're depressed, maybe you want to go, homesteading and raise chickens. I certainly do. Maybe you're one of the lucky few who's actually doing really well. You're feeling happy and satisfied in your job, and good feelings are okay too, but whatever you're feeling, just be honest with yourself. We only have one wild and precious life. Time is literally all that matters, and it runs out really fast. So manage your work-life balance. Use your leave. Take those mental health days. Touch grass, go and hug trees, make things with your hands, do things that are going to refill your creative cup. And if you hate your job and you're wanting to get out, please take this moment right now as your sign to do exactly that. Get the fuck out. Life is just too short. It's too short to be stuck in a role that is sucking the life out of you. In the same vein, check in with your team, especially if you're a people manager. Are people really okay? Or are they just putting on a brave face because they want to get a decent KPI score, which means a tiny little raise? Does your team really have to be online after 3 p.m. on a Friday? Or could you just quietly tell them to get the fuck off Slack and like go and play with their kids or their dogs? Don't text email colleagues with work shit after hours. Like, let people have their privacy. Let them live their own lives. And approve all the leave. Approve leave for parenting crises. Approve leave for mental health days. Approve leave on Mondays and Fridays without medical certificates. If you're in a position to influence policy at all in your role, can your organization do better than offering the bare legal amount of leave for all the types of leave? And do you really have to force everyone back into the office with, shitty commutes and noisy open plan to make your rental costs worthwhile? Or can you adopt a more flexible and compassionate approach that actually accommodates different people's lifestyles and needs? And I think the point is, we need to create safe spaces for our colleagues with both our words and our actions. Because everyone is carrying big burdens these days, because the world is completely mad. In my experience in big corporate, everyone is a big happy family until the Section 189 retrenchment letters arrive. And then you're just a line item in a spreadsheet. Business doesn't really care. And I think we can do better than this. If we want to get back to seeing the people who use our products as human beings, we have to start with ourselves and vice versa. Step 4, think critically. Question everything you read and read widely so that you can form educated opinions about things. You know now that not everything online is real. So where is Google's Gemini getting its information from? Can you trust those sources, or is it some bot-generated horseshit that's probably fake news? Gemini, ChatGPT, Claude, all the rest, they will straight up lie to you. I've experienced this myself, and even argue with you when they are blatantly wrong. So use LLMs carefully and learn about how this technology works. With great power comes great responsibility. Lastly, and most importantly, I think we need to get back to first principles and put human beings back in the center of our work. So let's talk to real people. I'm very glad to hear that, some of you certainly are still doing this. Put down analytics dashboards, pick up the phone, ditch the unmoderated usability testing for just one day in the field. 5 real conversations beats 5,000 data points any day. And yes, the tools are useful. I'm not denying that AI has enormous positive potential, and it's obviously rapidly changing the landscape that we work and live in. But AI can't replace real human engagement. Remember who you're designing for and advocate for them. They are not users like drug addicts. They are real people with busy lives, hopes, and dreams. They're the person trying to cancel their subscription at 11 p.m. at night, the parent juggling their phone and a newborn baby. It's your partially sighted grandmother, your friend with dyslexia, the person sitting in a taxi with a shit cell phone connection, trying to fill out a form. Let's put all of these human beings back in the room, and let's put them before profit. Lastly, remember that ethics and accessibility are not optional anymore. If you can't explain why you're collecting the data, don't do it. Move fast and break things, also breaks people. Good design is inclusive design, or it's not design at all. Making things even just a little bit more accessible improves them for everyone. As Pema Chodron says, compassion becomes real when we recognize our shared humanity. And this is absolutely crucial in these weird and apocalyptic times we find ourselves in. So what happens next? If you've seen me speak before, you know I always like to wrap things up with a cheeky little SMART goal. That's specific, measurable, relevant, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So a good example of a SMART goal would be by Friday, I want to read one article published by OpenAI about the guardrails that they have in place for ChatGPT. So I want to take a minute, think about one small thing you can do this week that will help you put empathy and humanity back in the picture. What single thing can you do to center humans in your work? Maybe you want to do a quick and dirty usability test with a friend. Maybe you want to redesign one small thing to be just a little bit more accessible. Maybe you want to push back on a shitty feature that's going to benefit business, but not your customers. Just take a few seconds. Please feel free to share in the chat if you'd like to, so we can all learn from each other. Going to give you a few seconds to think about it. Okay. So, just a reminder, the one thing to take away from this talk. In 2025, empathy has become a radical act. No, we can't fix the whole broken system alone. I love that. Be more empathetic in your user testing, 100%. We can't fix the whole broken system alone, but we can design one thing that doesn't suck for the person using it. We can have one conversation at work to advocate for more ethical and accessible features or products. And as a community of professional designers, I think we can support each other and we can support the humans who use our stuff. And we can collectively be introspective and ask ourselves, are we really doing our best work? Or are we just pushing pixels around on a screen? I think this stuff really, really matters. People are counting on us to be honest, accountable, to keep them safe online, and to add real value in their lives. So in closing, I'd like to share this quote from Angela Davis. It's become a mantra in this crazy year. Angela says, I'm no longer accepting the things I cannot change. I'm changing the things I cannot accept. Thank you so much for your time and for your attention. Just as a reminder, if you're interested in my ongoing midlife crisis and my transition from design to social research, or you need help understanding messy, complicated human things, please head over to empathylab.coza and pop us a follow on LinkedIn. And I promise you, all of our content is real and it's written by actual human beings. Cool.
Nick, thank you so much for that.
Is the mantra.
Do you first want to go through your mantra before I?
No. I just saw Caleb was asking if they can get a pic.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much for that talk. I really enjoyed it, and I can see there's lots of feedback and lots of emojis in the comments.
You're kind. You're too kind. Thank you.
We've got 2 questions so far, so I'll jump into it. The first question is from Maru. Thank you so much for saying so many of the things I've been thinking and feeling. Heart emoji. I'm working on a product that is built for underserved communities that are often exploited by bad people. Other than putting the users' voices in the room, what else should I be doing as a UXer to ensure our product stays committed to our users and not investors, shareholders, with only profit in mind?
So, I mean, the obvious ones are like go and do the research with those communities. Go there in person, meet people. Like really, it's the thing of like you can't understand someone until you climb in their shoes and walk around in them, right? And I think like going physically to where people are living, working, really doing those kind of contextual interviews to understand how your stuff is going to fit into their day and their lives, gives you insights that you're just not going to get from anything else. So like that's the obvious stuff. Go there and speak to the people. And also do research at kind of every iteration, because I think that's a really good way of helping us make sure that our product is staying true to people's actual needs, you know. The other thing I would say is do research more widely. So especially like in underserved and vulnerable communities, it's really important to understand like the kind of bigger picture. So like LSM, Iggy, what does LSM stand for? Living Standard Measures, I think.
Yes.
That's a good one. You know, like how much money are these families earning? Like what is the makeup of those households? You know, there's so much context that happens around where that small little slice where your product's going to fit in. So research is not necessarily just with people, it's also the wider research. Do as much reading and learning as you can. And I think also like stay honest with yourself. And at every step of the way, when you're making a decision about something, ask yourself, is this benefiting the people who are going to use this thing? Or is this benefiting the pointy head bosses? And it, you know, that can also become a kind of mantra where it's just every step along the way. It's like, who's this going to benefit? And it's always a bit of a compromise. I mean, big business, unfortunately, these fuckers pay our salaries. So we have to do some of the stuff they want. But there are a lot of ways to kind of get around that and subvert things and push back on things. But yeah, be honest with yourself, you know, stand by your ethics and ask yourself, like, who's this good for? I think that's a good place to start. Hope that answers the question.
Thank you. We'll jump into the next question from Rehana. And she says, I work for an e-commerce company and I'm angry, just like you. How do any of us find balance in a world like this while still needing to survive in these companies' jobs that no longer align with our values? Do we even find balance or do we rage?
Yeah, I feel your anger. Good God. I think firstly, it's really important to acknowledge that. So just about everyone I've spoken to, including like, you know, my doctors, psychiatrists, like everyone's just said the world is just shit. You can't open any news app at the moment without thinking like, oh my God, what the fuck am I reading today? You know? So I think it's really important that we need to acknowledge like everything is awful. And it's okay to be angry, and it's okay to say, you know, like I don't know, what's the word for it? The values of this company are just like bullshit, basically. I was in e-commerce. I won't name the company, but if you go and look on LinkedIn, you'll find it's not hard to find. And I was there on Black Friday. This was a long time ago. And tiny anecdote. Every time the company churned over another R1 million of turnover on Black Friday, which was like every 10 minutes, the whole office had to listen to the money, money, money song. I mean, how bad? How horrifically bad. So, you know, we have to be realistic about how we're feeling. We have to acknowledge the rage, definitely rage. And there's also ways to get rage out of other things. So, you know, participate in protests if you're politically inclined, like sign the petitions, you know, like do the social activism stuff that feels good for you. That's definitely one way to kind of channel things. And it's always a balance of, as you say, like needing to survive, but then you're thinking like, fuck, like what am I contributing to? I think you can subvert things in small ways. You know, so like if empathy is a radical act in 2025, honestly, I think like just doing a quick usability test with a friend, like those basics are also becoming radical acts, you know. So there's small things that you could do to be more empathetic, to be more in touch with your customers. And then I think it's important also just to fill your cup. You know, what else gives you meaning? What else makes you happy? You know, log off at 5. Like really be strict about those boundaries. Like it's just a job, it's a job and there's a salary, and the salary enables other things, and go and do and enjoy the other things. Make sure that you are filling the well. And also, in the vein of being honest with yourself, at some point, like if you just can't anymore, that's fine. Then look for something else. There are people out there doing amazing work, like as we've seen today already. You know, they're companies that it might not be a big fancy corporate salary, but money is not everything, you know. Yeah. So yeah, let yourself feel angry. Be honest with yourself, and just keep it real, I think, and get the fuck out. If it's really bad, make a plan. Make a plan to get out. Life's too short. Cool.
Next question. So we've got one from Tessa van der Merwe. How do you see this all playing out in the future for UX designers and UX design as a practice?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question, honestly, in some ways, I don't know. I think there are two ways that things could unfold. If we keep drinking the Kool-Aid, we're just going to become prompt monkeys. Figma is going to do our jobs for us. Like, you know, you're going to say, I need a functional prototype that looks like this, that has working code, and Figma will just be like, cool, here you go. And so everything is going to look the same. I think everything basically does look the same already. And yeah, there won't be any user research, and everything will just get enshittified, like aggressively and quickly. That's the one option, the depressing option. The other option, I think, is if we really, as a profession, take a long, hard look at ourselves and dig deep into how are these LLMs made? Like because nothing happens in a political vacuum, right? I mean, the fact that most of these things are coming out of America and as we see, like, you know, being used in completely different landscapes, like African countries, is quite something. What does that mean? You know, how are they made? What are the risks? You know, how do these things monitor themselves? Like, what about hallucinations? Like, really dig deep into what AI means, not just for design, but also like for human beings. And I think staying on top of like the news, the trends, like that stuff's important. Like, we're going to have to educate ourselves and really do the introspection to figure out, as I say, like, how do we keep humans at the center of what we do? Otherwise, honestly, I think we're going to lose our way completely. And we're just going to be prompt engineers. And I really, really hope that it's not going to come to that. Yeah.
Thank you, Nick. Our last question. Can't see who it's from. I don't think the person added the name user-E00FB80999 FE729.
Damn it.
So the person says, I've been running my business focusing on accessibility within the digital space as well as physical spaces. However, I'm finding it quite difficult to find clients, as it feels like the culture in South Africa seems to be that accessibility is an afterthought or checkbox. What do you suggest or have found with the Empathy Lab with finding clients who are interested in or teaching others the social empathy and activism for bringing in greater design inclusivity? Oh, it's from Julian.
That again? Yeah, thanks, Julian. Others, social empathy and activism. Okay, so yeah, listen, this is firstly and importantly, this is a problem all over the world, right? So a lot of people, a lot of businesses, well, and people, I guess, are like, you know, oh, cool, we've built this thing. Oh my God, now we have to make it accessible. And people firstly don't understand what that means. Yeah. And, you know, they think that now it's an extra 6 weeks on top of this. And, you know, it's not that. I mean, you know this if you're working in the field. So yeah, the culture here is tricky. The culture everywhere is tricky. It's better in some places, but this is a global phenomenon. So don't despair completely. Like, we're all dealing with this. I think the big thing, this is something that Steve Barnett and I have spoken about a lot, is that inclusivity happens on a spectrum. And this is a really nice way to pitch to clients. So it's not a thing that has to happen afterwards. It's something, firstly, that you bake in from the beginning. And then secondly, small things, any little shift across, along the spectrum from less accessible to more accessible is better than nothing. So making sure that your minimum font size is not smaller than 16 pixels, awesome, Testing just a couple of like your primary colors, like for contrast and readability, awesome. The other important thing that can also help when like trying to get buy-in from customers is that accessibility benefits everyone. So, you're not just like designing for blind people. Like I wear glasses. If the contrast is crap or the font's too small, I can't read your stuff, So I think using examples like that are more relatable, because they're more like common, can also really help. So yeah, I think a lot of it's about the framing. It can be small things that you do the whole way through the process, like just build it in as you go along. And it's also about this thing of it being on a spectrum and that it benefits absolutely everyone. You cannot do harm if you're making things more accessible. You're just making your product better for everyone. Finding clients you're interested in or teaching others. Yeah, I think also, what I've found over the years is like, you have to repeat the messaging a lot, So I've run a bunch of workshops. Steve and I have done loads of talks about this. And it's just like the more you keep talking about it, the more you get people thinking about it. Also, this UXSA community is just super, super supportive. So like, I don't know if there's meetups really happening. Well, probably not now because it's the end of the year. But go to the meetups, speak to the devs, do the talks, like, run a workshop. Like, I think that's also like a nice way of being proactive when it comes to helping others understand, why empathy matters and also doing practical things. Yeah, but it's an ongoing conversation. It really is. I've seen that over the last 10 years, but I think it's also the most important conversation. I hope that helps. I usually use, like you say, tapping into a greater market, and then they seem to get, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the minute you explain, this will help people using screen readers, but it's also going to help every single pointy head boss in the room wearing glasses, then people tend to get it. Yeah. Cool.
Nick, thank you so much for that talk.
Thank you.
For